time for the big number tonight. Last night during that victory speech, Mr. Paul made sure to thank the movement that got him there, the Tea Party.
I have a message from the Tea Party. The Tea Party movement is about saving the country. This Tea Party movement, the Tea Party message, the Tea Party, the Tea Party message, the Tea Party movement is huge.
Well, that Tea Party bell was ours, by the way. There it is, 9 mentions of the Tea Party. By the way, Rand Paul mentioned Kentucky during that speech only once. I guess this is one case where politics isn't local. Attorney General Jack Conway is the Democratic nominee for Senate in Kentucky. He'll face Republican Rand Paul in November.
I'd say just look at the statements he's made here in the last few weeks, Chris. He has stated that he would like to repeal the Civil Rights Act of 1964. He said that he would like to repeal the Americans with Disabilities Act.
You're saying that this fellow running for Senate from Kentucky, the United States Senate, wants to repeal the Civil Rights Act. You're saying he wants to get rid of that law?
He said that we don't need a Civil Rights Act.
Well, you know, you got a good argument there against. I didn't know that about Rand Paul. I now know it. If he's against the Civil Rights Bill and wants to get rid of it, he's not on my list of favorites.
This is the strange thing. He is actually on record with a blogger saying he wants to repeal the 1990 American Disabilities Act.
What about the Americans with Disabilities Act? Rand Paul says he wants to abolish that as well.
This isn't the only case. I mean, he has talked about actually repealing the Americans with Disabilities Act.
Gentlemen, let me set this up based on what happened here last night. Here's Rand Paul's Democratic opponent, Kentucky Attorney General Jack Conway, on Hardball last night. Let's listen. What's your best case that he's outside the mainstream, that he's too flaky, too Tea Party, whatever? What would you say?
I would say just look at the statements he's made here in the last few weeks, Chris. He has stated that he would like to repeal the Civil Rights Act of 1964.
Well, you heard Conway use the word repeal there. That's not true. We haven't found any instance of Dr. Rand Paul, the candidate, saying he'd repeal that law from '64. And he put out a statement today saying he unequivocally opposes any attempt to repeal the '64 Civil Rights Act.
Repeal the Civil Rights Act? Who except perhaps Dr. Paul is even considering any effort doing that? In essence, he endorsed an oil spill.
All you have to do is go and look at some of the conspiracy talk shows he's been on, and how he kind of is very sympathetic to this conspiracy notion of the New World Order and international cabals, you know, taking over the Republican and Democratic Party.
The establishment is in a blind, complete stupor and panic about what to do over Rand Paul's success. But what I find amazingly hypocritical is the fact that this originated from Rachel Maddow of MSNBC. And this is a woman who 80% of her paycheck comes from the owners of NBC Universal, General Electric, whose primary business activity is manufacturing bombs to be dropped on brown people in the Middle East and the Third World. So she's paid by a contractor whose business it is to slaughter brown people, and yet Rand Paul is the big racist because he thinks government shouldn't stick its nose into private business. A little bit hypocritical there, I might say. MSNBC yesterday aired no less than 8 different segments with guests such as Jesse Jackson, James Clyburn, and all these Democratic operatives. 8 different segments, all attacking Ron Paul. Not one person did the interview who defended Ron Paul or was even neutral.
Listen, Mr. Paul, we do real business here. We don't want any of your silly libertarian fantasies. Go rent the Matrix if that's what you're interested in.
We've come to take our government back.
Back to what?
What does he feel about the 1965 Voting Rights Act, that law that allowed me to be serving here in the Congress? I think we'll now be getting a full picture of exactly what the Tea Party movement is all about.
What is that? What word is apt to describe what he is that you're leading to?
This man's problem is that his ideology trumps his morality, if he has some.
And I think when he says take our country back, Ed, I think he means back to a time when it was okay to discriminate against, people of different races or with disabilities.
Mr. Rand Paul gave his acceptance speech at a private golf club. Stephanie, what's that tell us?
Well, yeah, that's the one section of the electorate they have yet to reach out to, the rich white guys that play golf.
He's a member of the Bowling Green Country Club, and we looked it up. The membership dues, man of the people. The membership dues are not that obnoxious. It's like $7,500 a year. He is an eye doctor.
So the attacks are completely made up, but the fact that they're being echoed across every corporate media rag just shows you how desperate they are to smear Ron Paul. And you can tell that this was contrived.
Chuck, can I ask you a question about the Democrats and their attitude towards Paul? It's clear to me, you saw, as I did in your inbox, 50 press releases yesterday from the Democrats. 50 press releases yesterday from the Democrats.
Because in the very hours after his victory, his crushing victory, they tried to attack Ron Paul because he held his victory celebration in a country club. And they said that this was some kind of racist, elitist thing to do. So right from the very start, they were trying to contrive race baiting and attack him on these racial angles. The country club thing was pathetic. It didn't work. And despite the fact that Rand Paul has eloquently defended his position, which again is backed up by mainstream libertarians, you have Rand Paul eloquently defending himself, but they're still going with it. But now we see Rand Paul being feathered and tarred about 10 times more, about 100 times more than Elaine Kagan. I mean, on the one hand, you have Kagan, who, her every view on the Second Amendment, free speech, her office argued to ban books, ban political pamphlets. She wants Americans held without trial, detained without trial. Her every view is completely abhorrent to the U.S. Constitution, and yet the corporate media is giving her such a soft ride compared to Rand Paul, who goes on MSNBC with Rachel Maddow a couple of days ago. He intellectually disagrees with one out of the 10 titles of the Civil Rights Act about preventing the government from regulating the First Amendment private businesses. He's not saying he's going to revoke the Civil Rights Act, as the debunkers have all claimed. Rasmussen reports, the big polling agency, that Rand Paul is 25 points ahead of his Democratic opponent, Jack Conway, even in the aftermath of all these racist smears. So it proves once again that the establishment media and their operatives are coming out with this stuff from a kind of virtual reality bubble. They still think that by launching these attacks, this race baiting can have such a massive impact. And the fact is that it's not having the same impact that it would have done several years ago, because people are aware of how these people operate.
Said that we don't need a Civil Rights Act. He would like to repeal the Civil Rights Act of 1964. He said that he would like to repeal the Americans with Disabilities Act.
Been around a while, and you're looking at one tough son of a bitch.
Yeah, I'm not in favor of any discrimination of any form. I would never belong to any club that excluded anybody for race. It's really tough to have an intellectual debate in a political sense, because what happens is it gets dumbed down. It'll get dumbed down to 3 words, and they'll try to run on this entire issue, and it's being brought up as a political issue. Every fiber of my being doesn't believe in discrimination, doesn't believe that we should have that in our society, and to imply otherwise is just dishonest.
Back in 1964, would you have voted yay or nay for the Civil Rights Act?
Yes, I would have voted yes. You know, I mean, if you want to bring up 40-year-old legislation, why don't you bring me on with Senator Byrd, and we'll talk about how he filibustered the Civil Rights Act. You know, call him to task for what something he actually did, as opposed to calling me to task for something that they insinuate. For several hours on a major news network yesterday, they reported repeatedly that I was for repealing the Civil Rights Act. That is not only not true, never been my position, but is an out-and-out lie, and they repeated it all day long. It started with my Democrat opponent asserting this, but has never been my position. I've been trashed up and down one network that tends to side with the Democrats. Oh, he wants to repeal the Civil Rights Act, but that's never been my position. Where did your talking points come from? The Democrat National Committee. What I tell to the National Democrats is bring it on, and please, please, please bring President Obama to Kentucky. And you see Chris Matthews now has admitted that everything he was saying wasn't true. It was coming from Jack Conway.
Mm-hmm. I have seen that running.
But they need to be a little more careful reporting their news. I mean, because they did it all day long.
This is on the repeal question.
Well,
right?
You know, it's on the whole thing.